Now, the work we did on the recipes module was a good start. But of course, the only thing we're doing thus far is we're outsourcing our recipes component declaration in a separate module so that the app module is a bit leaner. Now, that wouldn't be the worst reason to do it. It's absolutely fine to restructure your app to have leaner modules that are easier to understand and to manage. Yet, we can actually do more than that. We can also move the recipes-related route configuration away from the app routing module. So I'm talking about this branch here essentially, away from the app routing module and into our recipes module. For that, here in the router module, you could add for child now. Now, for root is only used once essentially here in the app routing module, where we use for root to configure our root routes. In a feature module, which you then plan on importing into your app module, you would use for child, and this will automatically merge the child routing configuration with the root routes. So therefore here we can use for child and pass in that same array of route configuration we passed to for root. Now, to keep this file leaner, and this is totally optional, I'll again create a separate module, the recipes-routing module, and therefore I'll export this class, recipes routing module, which will receive the @ng module decorator. And I only do that to focus on the route setup in this file and not clutter the other recipes module file with that. So here we have our routes, which are of type routes, which is imported from @AngularRouter and which is an array. And in that array, you add all recipes-related routes. And in this case, if we have a look at the app routing module, that means I take this single route, this recipes route, with all its nested routes. I take that, cut it from my app routing module, and move it here into the recipes routing module. So now here we have that route file, that route setup. That of course means that all these imports have to be added, and I will add all missing imports here. So all the recipe components and also the auth guard, that's also important. We use that here too, so that this file now has a correct route setup. And now in ng module, we add imports and import the router module from @AngularRouter. And as I just explained, on that module, you now call for child and pass in your routes. And then just as before, you export this router module here. We export it in the recipes routing module so that in the recipes module, we can actually import our recipes routing module. And again, of course, for that, you need to add an import path. So import recipes routing module from the recipes-routing.module file. So now we're adding the routes here in the recipes area. Now, with that adjustment, in the app routing module, we got one route less. We got all the other routes, but not this route. But now in the app module, we do import the recipes module, and since we register our recipes-related routes there, they should still be part of our general routing config. The routing config, is now just split across two files. That also means that here in the app routing module, we remove all these unused imports so that they don't pollute this file anymore. Now let's try saving that. And this looks good. Here I'm in the recipes area and I can navigate around. I can go to new recipes. So all these recipe-related routes, they still work just as they did before, but now with our split up route config. And again, here the idea can be that we make sure that we have a leaner app module and a leaner app routing module, and we manage all recipes-related things in our recipes module and nowhere else. So we split our app into at least two modules, or if you count the routing modules into 4 modules. Before we split it even more, and we also learn about different types of modules we could add, let me dive into one important note about components we load via routing. Like here, the recipes component. The recipes component is loaded whenever we visit slash recipes. The recipes component is also declared here in the recipes module. Let me remove that declaration and that export here. And let's see if the app still works thereafter. It doesn't. Now we get that the component recipes component is not part of any ng module. So it's really important to understand that you don't just add to declarations what you plan on using in a template, but you also have to add any routes here that you load via routing, so via routing config. It's not enough to just point at it here, you really just also need to have it here in declarations. The other important thing I wanted to highlight is that now that we manage the loading of our components here with recipes routing, we do define which component should be loaded for which route. There is no reason to still export all these recipe components because we're now only using them internally in the recipes module. We're using them either embedded into other components here or by loading them through the recipes routing module. Both is part of this file. So there is no reason to export the recipe components anymore because we're not using these recipe components in the app component or any child component of the app component. And therefore, as you can see, if we reload and rebuild everything, this app still works as before, even if I don't export all the recipe components anymore. So that was our first feature module, the recipes module. Now I want you to practice this a bit. Take the shopping list here and create a feature module for that as well. You learn everything you need for that, so definitely try it on your own. Here's your chance to pause the video. After the pause, we'll do it together. Were you successful? Let's do it together, and for that, in the shopping list folder, I'll create a shopping-list.module.ts file. Now in there, let's export this class shopping list module, and as before, let's add ng module as a decorator there. Now ng module needs to be imported from @Angular core like this. And in ng module, you now again have to declare what you're using in there, and you have to export what you're using elsewhere. Now let's have a look at our app module. What are we using that is related to the shopping list? Well, obviously, the shopping list and shopping edit components are used in the shopping list area. Therefore, let's grab these two components and remove them from the app module. Let's also remove their imports here. And let's instead move them here into our shopping list module. There, let's add declarations and add these two shopping list components. Now, just as before, make sure you also add the imports. Here, my IDE is unfortunately not helping me, so I'll do it manually. Import to the shopping list component, and also, of course, an import to the shopping edit component here. Like this. With that added, we could export this and import the shopping list module into the app module. Of course, we would also have to make sure we add all things the shopping list components need into the shopping list module. But I don't even want to export my shopping list related things in the shopping list component. I want to manage routing there as well. Now, if we have a look at the app routing module, we got one route related to the shopping list, and that is this shopping list route. Let's remove it from the app routing module and also get rid of that shopping list component import there. And now we could create a shopping list routing module, but since this is already a very small and tiny module, I will do it all in one file, though this is totally up to you, and you could create a separate routing module if you wanted to. There, I will import the routing, or will add the routing module, the router module, excuse me, from @Angular router. And there, I'll add for child, pass my routes array to it, and in there set up this single route that is related to the shopping list right now. We don't need to export router module here because we only did this when we had a separate routing module. Since it's now all included in the feature module, we already got it in the place where it should be. The router module is not the only module we need though. We also need the common module that should be imported from @Angular/common. This unlocks ng-for and ng-if. when we're using these features here. And we also have to add the forms module because we are using the template-driven forms approach in the shopping list area. So we need to import this as well. And then, well, of course, the router module. Now, this should be a module that works. Let's now go to the app module and add the shopping list module to it. And of course, adding it in the imports array is not enough. You also need to add an import to it up here from / not shared, but shopping list .module from that file. If you save everything, let's wait for the app to reload. And if I try to visit shopping list and I reload there, this all seems to work. So we now have a new feature module, this time for the shopping list area.